Good evening, everybody. Welcome. My name is Rowan Neufeld. I'm the events coordinator for McNally Robinson Booksellers in Saskatoon. From this end, we're streaming live from Treaty 6 territory, the traditional lands of the Plains Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota. Treaty 6 is also the homeland of the Métis Nation, one of Saskatchewan's founding peoples. So I'm really pleased to have you all here tonight to celebrate the latest Joanne Kilbourn mystery by Gail Bowen. It's called An Image in the Lake. So thanks for being here, Gail, who is here somewhere. I'd like to also extend our thanks to ECW Press and Alex in particular for working with us on tonight's event. So before I introduce Gail, I have a couple Zoom housekeeping items. We've enabled live auto captions tonight, which you can access by clicking the live transcript button along the bottom of your screen. There's also a Q&A box for you to submit your questions for Gail. So we'll have some time towards the end of the night to get to those. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Gail Bowen. She is an author, a playwright, and teacher. And among her numerous writing awards are a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Crime Writers of Canada and the Distinguished Canadian Award from the University of Regina. Reader's Digest has called her Canada's best mystery novelist as well. And in 2018, she was awarded the Saskatchewan Order of Merit and the Grand Master Award of Crime Writers of Canada. And she lives in Regina, Saskatchewan with her husband, Ted. Welcome, Gail Bowen.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
All right, and my video's there too?
Yes, you are good to go.
Good.
So I was hoping that you wouldn't mind setting the book up for us a bit and then reading a bit from it, and then we'll get into some audience questions.
Sure, and it's always great to have something like this happen at the beginning. So
yes, exactly.
to remind us how human we are. You know?
Yeah.
Right, anyway, okay, so no, I've already started my videos. That's okay. Yeah. Anyways, first of all, I wanted to thank McNally Robinson because they always. Now, am I still here now or not? I think not.
No, you're good. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I'm just gonna disappear for a while.
Oh, okay. Well, don't go too far.
Okay, I promise.
Okay. Just let me know as long as I can't see me, but that doesn't matter. At any rate, no, I just wanted to first of all thank McNally Robinson because always you have always been right from the beginning of my writing, which is like 30 years ago. Always such a constant supporter, and even in the midst of COVID, to find a way to do this is really a pleasure for me. I miss seeing all the people I saw at McNally's. I can almost close my eyes and see some of them. I don't want to leave anyone's names out, but there were so many that were such faithful supporters who came out in Saskatoon and in many other places too. And anyway, I'm grateful to them, and I'm grateful to you as well, Rowan, for taking this on. I know it's been a difficult personal week for you, but anyway, well done. We're all here, so that's good. So. Now I will tell what I'm about to read, if that's okay. The reading will take about 15 minutes. And so that will give everyone a chance to think of questions and whatever they want to do. And I'll just do the setup here for this particular reading. It comes close to the beginning of the book. And Joanne and Zack, her husband, have just arrived at something called an event called a Real Prairie Picnic. And for any of us who live anywhere, I think I've certainly been to many of these here in Saskatchewan and in Ontario and in many other places. And this Real Prairie Picnic is really an attempt to kind of go back and find the fun that we used to have by not having any electronic devices in our hands, And typically these events are held in a farmer's field and somewhere fairly close to the city, and the pleasures offered are all sort of the old style ones, and they're still great, and softball and horseshoes, and for the kids counting the number of jelly beans in a fish tank, and doing obstacle courses, and then drinking real lemonade made from real lemons, and eating pieces of pie that are slabs of pie. So it's just a lot of fun. It's and this particular picnic, however, as many do, has an agenda, and it's political. The party that Joanne and Zack support has just elected a new leader, a young woman, and her name is Ali Janvier, and she is the battle for the leadership was hard fought, and so in part the picnic is intended to placate and I think bring on side Allison's supporters and those who opposed her in the race to be to run for Premier of Saskatchewan. And so anyway, so that's the setup, and I think that's kind of all you need to know. Lots of fun, but that's it. So anyway, here's where we start, and it's Joanne and Zack have just arrived, and the tricky part. Okay, you notice I have played with lights all day today, because I've noticed that the light that sort of shines, if it shines on my head, it makes me look like I'm dead and I have a halo, which would be highly unlikely given me. And so I have a light here so that I could actually read. Anyway, so Joanne and Zack have just arrived at the picnic. We just started toward the picnic table set out for the Chicken Man's customers when Mark and Laurie Evanson approached. Mark was pushing a baby in a stroller. The encounter was, as New York Yankees catcher Yogi Berra famously remarked, deja vu all over again. One of the last times I'd seen the Evansons, Mark had been pushing a stroller. He had been 19 then, a solid, good-looking, strong young man with a solid, good-looking, strong 3-year-old son, squirming to get free of the stroller. The baby's mother, Laurie, had been at Mark's side. At 19, she had the beauty of a teen magazine cover girl, shoulder-length dark blonde hair, peaches and cream complexion, blue-green eyes, pert nose, and perfect rosebud lips. It was 16 years since I'd seen the Evansons. They were now 35, and yet they seemed not to have aged at all. When Laurie recognized me, she slapped her hands together in delight. Her voice was sweet and lilting. "Oh, Mrs. Kilbourn, this is the best surprise. I've hoped and hoped that we would run into you one day, and now here you are." She looked at Zack with frank interest. "And you're..." Her brow furrowed in concentration as she worked through the possibility of Zack's relationship with me. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the furrows vanished. The problem was solved. "Well, you must be Mrs. Kilbourn's friend," Laurie said, and her tone was triumphant. Zack's correction was gentle. "I'm Joanne's husband, Zack Shreve," he said. Mark extended his hand to Zack. "Well, congratulations, Mr. Shreve. Mrs. Kilbourn has always been a very good friend to us." "I hope we can all be good friends now," Zack said. I crouched in front of the baby in the stroller and looked up at Laurie. "Hey, is this little guy yours?" I asked. A shadow crossed Laurie's face. "No, Clay is our only child." She brightened. "But Andy is family." "Andy is my dad and stepmother's baby," Mark said. "They have 3 children together. Gabriella is 16, Craig Jr. is 14, and Andy is 22 months. The name evoked memories of another Andy, one who had been dear to me and to many in our party. "Is he named after Andy Boychuk?" I said. Mark nodded. "He is. My dad said Andy Boychuk was a decent man." "He was," I said, "and he would have been very proud to have this handsome boy as his namesake." This handy was a surprise, Laurie whispered. I stood. My youngest was a surprise too, I whispered, but a nice one. The sun was full on Laurie's face, but even as in the unsparing light, she had the dewy freshness of a girl. As they had been 16 years earlier, Laurie's wide, innocent eyes were carefully made up. Peach eyeshadow blended into mauve and then a soft smudge of gray eyeliner beneath her lower lashes. Clearly, she had found the look that worked for her and stuck with it. I'm so glad we ran into you today, I said. You both look great. Obviously, life is treating you well. It is, Laurie said. Her voice was as musical as a wind chime. We don't live in Wolf River anymore. We live in Lumsden. That's 33 kilometers from Regina. When Laurie didn't elaborate, Mark provided the context. 7 years ago, my stepmother Manda inherited her father's house in Lumsden. It's a big, beautiful house. Manda and my dad said the house was big enough for us all, and it would be good for everybody if we moved in. So we had a family meeting and we moved in. And it's worked for your family and Craig and Manda's, I said. Laurie cast her husband an anxious glance. Obviously, there was a piece of information that was Mark's to deliver. His gaze was steady. Mrs. Kilbourn, I believe God moves in mysterious ways, and that sometimes we see through a glass darkly. A prairie picnic seemed an unlikely setting for an existential discussion. A group of boys to our left was having a contest to discover who could spit a watermelon seed the farthest. A woman sitting next to them was selling chances on a star quilt glowing with the colors of sunset. Next to her, children not much older than Andy Evanson were crawling and climbing through an obstacle course. Andy had spotted them and was struggling to get free of his stroller. Laurie reached down, released him, and murmured, "Hang on, buddy. That's where we're going next." When he was certain Laurie's assurance satisfied Andy, Mark began what was clearly a narrative he had delivered often. Wolf River Bible College Grade School is a wonderful God-centered community of people who share the same beliefs, he said. It had been the right place for Laurie and me, but it was never the right place for Clay. Our son had questions that Laurie and I couldn't answer. Clay never fit in, and he didn't believe what the teachers tried to teach him. He started asking questions, and when the other students told him that the teachers were right and that he was bearing false witness, Clay started acting out. Laurie and I tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen. Clay said he was smart enough to find his own answers. Laurie nodded emphatically, and Mr. and Mrs. Shreve, Clay is smart. He's like Mark's mother, very smart. We bought him a copy of the New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures so he could find his own answers. We paid extra to have his name, Clay Thomas Evanson, embossed on the leather cover in gold. That book of the Holy Scriptures was beautiful, but Clay wouldn't even open it. Laurie's lovely blue-green eyes filled with tears. Mrs. Kilbourn, do you remember me telling you that we chose Chloe's name from Isaiah 64:8? But now, O Lord, you are our Father. We are the clay, and you are our potter, and we are the work of your hand. Mark and I tried. We did our very best. So did Clay's teachers. So did everyone else in the community. But no matter how hard we tried, Clay would not be shipped. Mark swallowed hard. Finally, the principal of the school called Laurie and me. in and said that it would be better for everyone if we found another school for Clay. The story seemed to be moving inexorably toward tragedy. Zack's eyes were downcast, and my chest was growing tight. Laurie picked up on our concerns. "Don't be worried," she said. "God had a plan." Mark picked up the narrative. "Mrs. Kilbourn, do you remember my mother, Julie?" "I do indeed," I said. Julie Evanson had been a thorn in the side of everyone who knew her. "I heard she remarried," I said. "She did," Mark said. "And the man she married is an important person with important friends who all have cottages up north at Emma Lake. My mother really loves Clay, and so does her husband. Clay was never happy in Wolf River, especially not in the summer. He didn't have friends, and there was nothing for him to do. When Clay was 7, my mother and her husband started taking him to their cottage for the summer. He was happy with them. And when we told my mother and her husband about Clay's problem at school, they said they were planning to move back to Regina and he could live with them and finish school there. So that's what he did. Clay just finished his 2nd year at the School of Journalism," Laurie said. "We're very proud of him. He has a job at MediaNation, and he might be here today. Mark and I are hoping we'll see him." Mark put his arm around Laurie's shoulders. "I think my dad knew Laurie and I would be lonely without Clay. So that's why he suggested we move in with their family. My mother's husband gave me a really good job, and Manda and Laurie opened up a preschool together in our house." "It's called Just Beginning," Laurie said, and her eyes were shining again. "I love the name because it's kind of the way it's been for Mark and me and Clay and everybody. We're all just beginning." Mark's gaze at Laurie was adoring. "That's exactly right," he said. "We are all just beginning." Laurie handed Andy to her husband and came over to Zack and me. "I'm just going to hug you both," she said. Laurie's arms were warm and her hair smelled of sunshine and summer. Her voice was gentle. "God bless," she said. And now we skip ahead a little bit and we meet Clay. And the party has been going on for a while. The picnic has been going on, and it's reached the stage now where there are speeches and some entertainment. And so the evening's almost come to an end. And I'm going to have a sip of water. Now the sing-along was over, and people were clapping and calling Ali Janvier's name in a ragged chorus. "Ali, Ali, Ali." The event had been a triumph. But an old political friend once warned me that when a campaign appears to be going too well, somewhere there's a dragon crawling out of its lair, heading toward your candidate with bedlam on its mind. Our dragon wasted no time making its appearance. Allison may have been a political novice, but she could judge when applause had reached its peak. When she was handed a John Deere cap, she donned it, waved it over her head one last time to the crowd, and started toward the back of the stage. What happened next was a blur. There was a tangle of wire cables on the floor. Allison did a quick check to make sure her path was clear. Then someone in the crowd called out to her, and she turned toward them. When Allison's attention shifted, a young blonde man in a spiffy golf shirt leaned against the edge of the stage and pushed the tangle of cables into her path. When Allison turned in the direction that would take her off stage, her foot caught on the wires and she fell forward. It was a hard fall, and for a few agonizing seconds, she was motionless. Maisie handed Colin to Zack and pushed herself onto the stage and knelt beside Allison murmuring her name. The man in the golf shirt pulled out his phone and started taking pictures of Allison lying face down on the stage. Jill Ajawi had her phone with her, but her phone was pointed at the man, and she was moving toward him. I followed close behind. When she was close enough to be heard, Jill said, "Delete that video." And her tone was flinty. As soon as I saw the young man's face, I knew he was Clay Evanson. His likeness to his mother was remarkable, but where Laurie's face radiated innocence, her son's face was dark with arrogance and anger. He had a press pass on the lanyard around his neck. He grabbed the pass and flashed it at Jill. "I'm a journalist with MediaNation," he said. "Well, that's a coincidence," Jill said, pulling her photo ID out of her purse and waving it at Clay. "I work for MediaNation too. Delete the video." Clay Fairbairn held his press pass close to Jill. "Read the name on this ID." Jill glanced at the name and shrugged. "I heard you had a summer internship here, Clay." "Those internships are a great opportunity for professionals to assess what an intern could bring to our profession. Our CEO would be very disappointed to see that video of you deliberately obstructing Alison Janvier's path so you could create a clip that shows her falling flat on her face." Clay was spattering. "Hugh Fairbairn is the CEO, and he's also my grandfather. I could have you fired." Jill may have had a history of choosing deeply flawed men as romantic partners, but she recognized a prick when she saw one, and she made short work of diminishing Clay Fairbairn. "Hugh and I go way back," she said. "He's a pragmatist. He would never fire a colleague for showing him one of his budding journalists needs a refresher course in ethics. Do yourself a favor, delete the video." Clay's peaches and cream complexion was mottled by anger. "You really are a cunt," he said. "Strike three," Jill said, and she touched her phone's keypad. "Time to let Hugh see you in action." Clay's mouth twisted. "Don't," he said. He tapped his keypad. "There, it's deleted. Now you delete yours." Jill was derisive. "No way," she said. "First rule of journalism, preserve the evidence." Clay reached out to grab Jill's phone. Zack wheeled his chair close to Jill's side. "I don't know what your game is, Mr. Fairbairn, but I'm a lawyer, and you should be aware of the fact that if Alison Janvier sustained a serious injury because of that fall, you'll be up on charges. What Ms. Ajawi has on her camera is evidence of what might well turn out to be a criminal act. The law takes a dim view of people who destroy evidence." Clay spat out the word cunt again, then stalked off. "A limited vocabulary," Jill said mildly. "You'll have to work on that." Okay, so that's that. And now we're ready for questions. Although I may just add something that I found of interest, because I too am not fond of the word cunt. But I learned that the origin of the word cunt goes back to 1500 BC, and the ancient Aryans, it's always been a powerful word because it refers to the sacred place in which life is created. So the next time you hear that, perhaps you might want to elucidate the person who's using it against you.
Well, thanks so much for that reading. I think we have not a question, but a comment to start things off. A recommendation. Lynn Bell is telling us all to buy this book. She loved the story and the return of so many characters, and says it's a great read. So,
thank you, Lynn Bell. The check was in the mail.
Yeah. If anyone else has questions for Gail, feel free to pop them in the Q&A box or in the chat. I have one more general question that I'd like to kick things off with. I'm wondering what excites you about mystery and crime novels right now, either as a writer or a reader?
I think the thing that excites me is just as both a writer and a reader is how encompassing and they have become. I mean, there have been many stages, and it's fun to go through the stages. It's fun to read them in the stages in which they were written, but it is now. There is. My friend Mary Sutherland used to own a bookstore here in Regina, and the first time I walked in and saw that she had a gay and lesbian section in her mystery section, I was so thrilled, because what I realized then was something that's happened now, and that is that mysteries are now for everyone. Anyone can pick up a mystery and find themselves reflected in it, no matter what. And no matter who you are or what your interests are, it is no longer just. The mysteries have such an amazing history, I think, and I love to read it myself. But it was a period of growth, and now I think there's a real flowering of the mystery, that there's just so much going on, and really you can find something that will reflect your concerns and your interests. So that's what I would say.
So I guess as a follow-up to that, and I know we are here to celebrate your book, but I'm very curious about what you're reading right now.
Well, I'm a bad reader at the moment, because
Fair enough.
At the moment, I'm reading. Well, to be honest, I would tell you, this is the romantic life of a reader, of a writer. I just obviously, An Image in the Lake just came out, so I'm doing publicity for that. I have another book that is called What's Past is Prologue, which is now at the editors in New York. So I'm already doing writing things for publicity for that, and working on the cover with the people who work on the cover. And I'm writing a third book another book. So that would be like the 22nd book in the Joanne series will be, So at the moment, my reading is so embarrassingly narcissistic. I'm reading a lot of Joanne Kilbourn, because 20 books. Now, so I'm working with, the 23rd book, or 20 whatever. And, so I do have to go back and check things out. So I really am embarrassed, especially when my grandkids are here, because they're here. My grandsons are here every day. And they say, "What are you reading, Mimi?" "Oh, I see, you're reading yourself again." And I am. But I also read. I do read friends' books. And if friends have a book and they need a blurb, I will certainly do that. As far as reading, I'm waiting on a lot of things. Combe Toy Bean has written a new book about Thomas Mann that I'm waiting on. And so, there are, I tend to really, I look forward so much to just having reading that is not related to, as my kids used to. My kids, when years and years and years ago, we took our son Nathaniel and his buddy, and we had it was a great trip for them, because we went to Edmonton, stayed at West Edmonton Mall. And so the kids, and this was in a more innocent time, because Ted and I just went out to Edmonton, and the boys were like 13 or 14. And I remember that we came in and we stayed at the hotel that was the Fantasyland, and we walked in, and somebody had said, "Don't get just get an ordinary room, don't get the Fantasyland thing, because they're small." So we got a room, and when we got in there was a great big bed, and then mirrors over the bed. And the boys said, "Why would anybody want mirrors over their bed?" And I said, "Probably because they're not traveling with two 14-year-old boys." It's just, and
right.
They had so we did all of that. And then we drove north, and the boys were with us. And somewhere along the line, someone gave me, one of the libraries had made a giant sized, life-size, I guess just life-size picture of me. And it had been, whatever you do, that laminated it. And you had to, and so when we were leaving, they said, would you like to take this with you? And they folded it into pieces, and my son and his friend put it in the car. And from that moment on, my own children, who are now adults, refer to, when I'm being professional, they say, oh, is that a Gail Bowen moment? Because that's what they started calling me. And they would say when we got to a motel, don't forget Gail Bowen, and all this poor laminated figure. And so I at the moment, I try to avoid being the Gail Bowen figure. But right now, it just happens to be a time when it's work. I mean, it just seems to be work related that way. But there are many things I do want to read, and so many things that, that I really enjoy. And also, I mean, I read a lot of short fiction, and my plate is full. I mean, and it's still, reading is still such a joy for me. It's never dull. I mean, I feel that those of us who are readers have found it much easier to endure the last 19 months or whatever, because we still have that. And, and so you really, I feel grateful that, I feel grateful that I've been a reader since I was 3 years old. And, it's just a great thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. It makes a lot of sense to have to go back to earlier work and reread, because how can you hold 22 books in your brain at one time? Like, that's
well, yeah, especially, I mean, no, it's true. And you do find yourself getting like, I don't, and readers are very careful. And I should point out too, something I'm very grateful for is many readers read the series again and again, and so they're the ones who will pick up on something. And and I don't want to, I wrote this book about mystery writing called Sleuth, and it's just filled with some useful hints. But one of them is check your facts, because if you make a factual error, it's like the old joke about the fly in the soup. The fly doesn't wreck the soup, but it does wreck the experience. And it's the same, if you have if I find a factual error in a book, I mean, just something that I know is wrong, it really puts me off. There was a book that was about a university, and I picked it up, was looking at it, and because I like those, and since I taught at a university for 40 years or whatever, and but it was about a fight in the English department, a murder because of people wanting to be chair. Well, I was chair of our English department for 7 years. No one would have killed for that job. You'd kill yourself to get out of having it, and so I thought, no, I can't read that one. So anyway, here, it looks like there's a question.
Oh, there's some questions. Yes. Constantine is wondering if you would write in another genre.
I don't, at this point, I don't think so. Not because of anything. I have written short stories. I've written, and not a lot, but I've written a couple of short stories. I wrote the book Sleuth, which is a how-to mystery book. I write plays. There's that. I forgot about that. And let's see, three of them have been produced and across Canada, and not many, not widely produced, but produced sort of. I mean, they have had more than one production. And I have a book right now or a play right now that I really love, that I've been working on forever, and I hope it will get. It's called The Happiest Girl, and it's very close to my heart. I hope it will get produced, but I mean, that's sort of it for me. The mysteries, and but I really do like so many things. There's so much I'm interested in, and that of course comes from reading. The more you read, the more you realize you don't know things. So
that's true. There's more to know than
yeah, I know.
we ever realized. Kathy Ald is wondering what you missed during the pandemic. Picnics or going somewhere else to write?
No, Well, I missed, I was talking about this today with a very old friend of mine who's in her 90s, and she lives in Ontario, and I've known her since I was a kid. And we're both Anglicans, and we were talking about the things that I was quoting that line to her about, that line, the Joni Mitchell line about you never know what you've got till it's gone. And that's the kind of things that they're the casual things, the big thing. It was, like we always had at church, we always had we always had a harvest Sunday. There were always fowl suppers, and no matter when we lived in Ontario, I was growing up in Ontario, there were strawberry festivals and all those tiny things that they do not seem consequential at the time, but really are part of the fabric of a very good life. It's almost those when you start to think about that. Like I'm thinking my daughter, printed up we have a large family, and she printed up the list of for the gift exchange today. And I was thinking, well, like last year, see, it's always for us. It's always, Christmas has always starts with Advent, but we all go to Christmas Eve service together. I always say to everybody, my two Christmas miracles are when I look and I see all of my children and their children in a pew, because that doesn't happen. Easter miracle, I have the same thing. So I get two miracles a year. One when all the kids show up, and so that to me is that. And then our pattern was always then to come back here and have dinner, and a fancy dinner, and we go to the early service and have dinner here, and then unwrap one present, and then sometimes the kids would put on a little play or do a little something, but that's not there now, and that is, it's Geraldine, my friend, and I, that we agreed that in a really strange way, we're both quite content, but it's just like they were, as I said, the fabric of our life, that they were something that added such beauty and just fun, and it's not there. I noticed today, however, that my neighbors next door, who always go all out for Halloween, like wildly all out for Halloween, and in a very inventive way, they're putting all their decorations up today. And they have my office is on the second floor, and they have a porch on the second floor, and they already have a kind of a horrible, I don't know, a monster kind of guy, great inflated guy. But then they also, this year, they have added a very realistic mannequin wearing a female mannequin wearing very informal clothes with gloves, and then they have over their car, they have a great big pumpkin, and then they have a constant playing Michael Jackson's Killer. And so so I'm seeing Halloween is part of what's going on, and it's so good to see people making the effort. We make the effort here too, but I'm not nearly as talented or dramatic as they are, but it's nice. But that's it. I've been able to, we've been very lucky. Our children all live in Regina, and that means the grandchildren are here. So that means we see each other, albeit on a lawn visit. And as I said, our 16-year-old grandsons, they're not twins, they're 12 days apart from two different families. You'll be happy to hear from two different families. No mother wants to have two children, twins, 12 days apart. But they come here every day after school, and we play Monopoly Deal in a vicious way, in a vicious family destroying way. But we play Monopoly Deal. And so we've had, I count myself very fortunate.
I love this story about the thriller house. That's amazing.
It is. Well, we live at 2836 Retallick. So anyone who lives in Regina, just peel on by, because it'll be out till Halloween, and it's really nice. Ours is the boring one next door with it, just pumpkins and a few little mildly terrifying things. But this neighborhood is fantastic for Halloween, and they were our neighbors across the street one year, not the ones who are there now, but other neighbors. They had a real coffin, and that opened up very, very, very slowly when a child came up the path it started to open and the scary music came. And then the man who owned the house was dressed as he was like in skeleton, like really skeleton scary stuff. And he would rise up and stand and then say in this sepulchral voice, "I love Halloween." And those children just, it was terrifying. But
yeah.
Yeah.
I think your house is, it's exciting by association.
Well, yeah. A little osmosis.
Yeah.
Something good.
We've got a question from Cindy Sherbin, who says, "I enjoy your books for many reasons, one of which is recognizing local spots in the province. Can you share with us how broadly read your books are, and if you have a following in other parts of the country or in other particular countries? And have your books been translated into other languages that you know of?"
Yeah. Well, today has something really nice happened. Just to answer that question, I am going to be speaking to at the, well, it'll be by Zoom. I was invited originally to come to Marburg, Germany, and to speak at the university there. And the University of Marburg, I've learned, is I think the second oldest university in Europe. And it is I think it is. It looks so beautiful. But of course, this is COVID time, and this has been. It was 2 years ago that I was invited first, and then last year they didn't try to do anything, and this year they're going to do something. But I will be doing it. I will be doing it from home. But the fellow who's in charge, the professor who's in charge of it, sent me a picture of their library at the University of Marburg, and all the Gail Bowen books were sort of all set up in there, and said that just today, and it was kind of nice to see them. Some of them have been translated into German, and I think a couple were translated into Dutch. And I don't know, but I'm very optimistic about the fact that they, these, some of them are taught at Marburg University. They have a Canadian studies department, and some of my books are taught there. So it's very exciting to think of how other people see us. To see. I was touched during, some of the, it's been, no matter where you stand politically, the past 4-5 years in the U.S. have been frightening and difficult. But so many Americans wrote to me and said, "Do you realize how lucky you are to have?" So I get lots of American readers. How lucky you are to have your country, and where there's, we certainly have our problems, but where there is a level of civility, and for the most part, I don't know, but that. So I think that people see, and you look at books about another country, and you do see what people's lives are like, and I think that's one of the reasons people enjoy the Joanne books, because they do see a very realistic life. She's not perfect, and her life isn't perfect, but she also is very grateful for what she has, as I am, and so it's it's kind of a nice. It's a compliment. They are translated, but they're starting to sell more in the States, and you hope, but I have no complaints at all. I love teaching university. That was like fun. Really, I love teaching still. And I got to teach at First Nations University, which was a whole wonderful experience in itself. And I taught at, Beardy's First Nation and Little Pine Palmaker First Nation. And so, I've had so many great experiences there. 6 of my books were made into movies, so I got to see that. And, I tell you, I think I look back and I think, and here I am, just here on Retallick Street. I've lived in the same house for 43 years, but it's. I think I've had I'm continuing to have a really interesting and good career. So.
I think that leads nicely into this next question, which I am also going to suggest to this person that they pick up a copy of Sleuth. But Constantine is wondering how you started writing mysteries. So maybe if you want to speak to that a little bit, and then we'll have time for a couple more questions tonight.
Sure. Well, Constantine, if you pick up Sleuth, you'll see in the beginning, the first chapters, I think the early chapters talk about that. My career, I mean, talk about luck. I mean, I won't even go into it, but I think all of us realize how much being in the right place at the right time matters. And as far as writing was concerned, I was just in the right place at the right time. I was asked to write the first thing by Western producer Prairie Books, and it was a friend, Ron Markin, who lived in Saskatoon and taught at the university there, was writing a book called An Easterner's Guide to Western Canada, Westerner's Guide to Eastern Canada. And it was just a funny book about supposedly with those of us in the West writing to Easterners and telling them how they could manage to handle the wild and woolly West. And then those in Montreal, it was co-published in Montreal. Then the Montreal writers telling us how Aaron Slicks from Pumpkin Creek could manage to make it in Montreal. And it was just funny, lighthearted. And Ron Markin phoned me on a Sunday afternoon, and I can still remember I'm sitting in the room where all this happened at the moment. And we had 3 kids at home, and I was teaching full time, and I was very involved in politics. And Ron asked, they had one entry into the book from Saskatchewan, and it was beautiful and elegiac, but it wasn't funny, and the writer would not change it. And Ron asked if I would change it, and I said, I can't. I said, I've just got way too much on my plate. I'm sorry. And I hung up. My husband said, what was that? And I said, and he said, when a friend asks you to do a favor, I thought, right. And so I called back and said I would do it. And that began, so from that, the publisher there liked the way I wrote. And so when I decided I was going to write a mystery, he took it. He was with Douglas and McIntyre there. Then he took it, and it was desperately bad. And it needed serious editing, but he took that responsibility on. And then when Douglas and McIntyre went out of mysteries, he sent a manuscript they hadn't even seen to McClellan and Stewart, who took it immediately. So I have had a very gentle career. But that's how I got into it. And the reason I chose mysteries was I was 43 years old, I think, when I started, at least, but yeah, 43 when I started writing. And I thought I would write, first of all, because I teach, my academic credentials are in English, but all summer, my husband and I both he's also in English, but we would both read mysteries, go to the library and just go and take mysteries out. So, one piece of advice I give in Sleuth, and I think it's still good advice, is way more than you think you know. Take a look at the book chute. Choose 5 books that you really love, and then go at them as if you're in English 100. All right, who is what's the form of narration they've chosen? What person? Is it kind of narrative? Is it first person, second person, third person? And what role do secondary characters have? Where is it set? What role is the setting? And just go through it the way you would if you were in English 100. Take it to the elements of fiction, structure, style. Go through it all, and at the end of that, you will have a pretty good idea of what you want to write. I realized when I thought about mysteries that I really liked books with strong central characters. And I liked series, and I liked series where I had a sense of place. And I also felt that an underrepresented population were women and middle-aged women, and that was true 30 years ago when I started. And Joanne ages in the course of the books too. So she was I think 43 or whatever when it started, and she's 64 now. So that's been an interesting passage for me too. So I would think that was kind of why I went there, because it just seemed like I wanted to write, but I didn't. I felt that I knew more about mysteries, And because I just read so many, and I think that that's probably good advice for everyone. Look at what you like and study it, and then try and that will obviously be something you'll be ready to do. Hope that helps, Constantine.
He does also say he read Sleuth and loved it. So
good. Thank
there's
you.
that. But
Good.
yeah, I always appreciate it when authors kind of demystify the process of writing. There's the inspiration and there's the desire to write, and then there's also the stuff of it.
It's work. It is work, and it's like everything else. I mean, it's I mean, I keep work. I have always, as well, it was harder for me when I was teaching at the university, but I keep working hours. I keep like business hours, and because it is a job. And I you know, my other rules are never ever leave your writing in a bad place. I start early in the day, and I have very rigid hours, and I don't read after the kids come at 4:00. And I don't read in the evenings, or write in the afternoon or in the evenings. But if if my writing's in a bad spot, I will go back to it at night and work on it. And because Ernest Hemingway said, always leave the well primed. And, you know, I know from my own experience, if you leave your writing in a bad spot, you don't want to go back to it. You will find excuses not to. So Never leave it in a bad spot, and write every single day. Those are my two pieces of advice.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We've got a question about the title of the English department murder mystery. Someone, Deborah's wondering if you can pass along the title. I'll just type it into the chat.
I can't remember. I didn't want to read it. I mean, I just put it right back, but I can tell you the one that I would I'm actually, the one that I wrote about, Burying Ariel, was the one that I wrote about, it was the closest one to it was about a university. And Burying Ariel, though, really focuses on what I found, and this is interesting to me because this is how I got my connection with the University of Marburg. There was a graduate course, a seminar, and they studied Burying Ariel because it really is about extremism, and it was about extreme feminism. And I wrote it at the time when I was worried about how extremism always scares me, you know, where all of a sudden you're excluding others. And so and it was interesting, the reaction that book, because the young people who wrote about the, you know, young German women, their prof sent me a couple of the essays. They saw a lot of what I saw, which was that excess can be dangerous. Excess is dangerous to the cause. And it's especially dangerous if you don't include everyone. And my beef at the time was that it was all well and good for me as a middle class educated a Caucasian woman, for me to, you know, to take on the, you know, to take this on. But it had to be not just for people like me, it had to be for women who didn't have an education. And you know, because I worked at First Nations, I was certainly aware that life, if you're a First Nation person, was very different for a woman than it would be for me. So that book tried to encompass all that. So, but universities fascinate me. I mean, they're, you know, the old joke is that the politics are so vicious because the stakes are so small. And, you know, it's true. It's true. It's just nuts, you know. But yeah, I'm sorry I can't remember that to help you, but I love it. Oh, I can recommend a beautiful book. Oh gosh, if I can remember the name. Oh, let me think. And anyway, I can't think right now because it'll oh gee, I don't know. I will think, and I will send it to Rowan, and she can post it when I remember. After I'm finished here, I know I'll remember. But it's a beautiful book about, it's not a mystery, but it's a beautiful book about university teaching, and it's about what it can mean. And it's what I love about this book, which I'm sorry I can't remember. Oh, it's awful. Anyway, it's no. Anyway, it is about the, and I think this is an interesting thing for writers to examine, and for all of us. It's a book about that shows the difference of a life observed and a life lived, because the man in the center of the book comes from a farm and gets to teach it, takes a class in literature. He goes to school to be in agriculture, takes a class in literature and realizes this is what he wants. And so he's able to make a career in literature for himself. He has a very bad marriage. He does not have a brilliant academic career. But they give him a retirement dinner, and he hates the idea of having a retirement dinner, but he gets up, and I cry when I think about this, but he doesn't want to speak, but he gets up and says, "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to teach." And it's a beautiful book because it shows everyone thinks he's a failure, but he never saw his life that way. He saw it as a great gift. And that's a great lesson for all of us, I mean, it's your life. Don't worry about what other people think, and it's anyway, and I will remember the name of that book. I'm so sorry. I'll send it to you, Rowan, because Rowan, I will get it.
Well, yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay, good.
Well, we're out of time here, but I just wanted to thank you so much again for joining us over Zoom. It's always a pleasure to host you, and I do hope that next time we'll get to have you back in the store. We'll make an evening of it. But again, thanks for joining us on Zoom. And thanks also to ECW Press for working with us on the event, and to all of you for joining us tonight and for all of your questions. Don't forget to pick up your copy of An Image in the Lake by Gail Bowen, either in store or online at mcnallyrobinson.com. I believe we have a few signed copies left from when you were in Saskatoon last, so you might be able to snag a signed copy as well if you act quick.
I have book plates if you'd like me to send them.
Oh, that would be great too.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll send those up. And my friend Dorothy Young, who always lives in Winnipeg, and she always supports me in everything I do, just sent a message on the bottom saying thanks to you, Rowan, and and thanks to you, Dorothy, for always.
Yes.
She does all this wonderful sewing, and she has this remarkably full life herself. But anyway, good for her. Good, and thank you all very, very much for being here and for reading and supporting books.
Yes, yeah, we appreciate your support so much. Oh, sorry, no, I cut you off there.
Especially independent stores.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we appreciate your support so much, and look forward to being able to safely host in-person events again, at least in Saskatoon. For anyone who's tuning in from Winnipeg, they are doing some hybrid events. You can find out more about both types of events on our coming events page. And until next time, we just hope you take care and stay safe. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Gail.
Thank you.